So Rishi Sunak, during the last PMQs, made a vile anti-trans joke the week Brianna Ghey's killers were convicted. Take a look.
It's a bit rich, Mr. Speaker, to hear about promises from someone who's broken every single promise he was elected on. I mean, I think I counted almost 30 in the last year. Pensions, planning, peerages, public sector pay, tuition fees, childcare, second referendums, defining a woman. Although in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn. The list goes on, but the theme is the same, Mr. Speaker. It's empty words, broken promises, and absolutely no plan.
Of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in this chamber, shame, parading as a man of integrity when he's got absolutely no responsibility.
This is incredibly revolting from Sunak. I mean, he clearly has no shame, and he still refuses to apologise. And Brianna's mother, Esther, was in Parliament at the time. Now, luckily, she wasn't in the gallery when he made that comment, but she joined just after. And imagine if she was there and saw in real time the PM making a transphobic comment after her trans daughter was murdered. Just awful. To lose a daughter, to go through something like that. You'd like to think that some of our politicians are there for you, but instead she has to hear our Prime Minister attack trans people whilst Esther is grieving. The Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Laura Trott, went on Politics Live defending Sunak by saying it was a really weird comment to not make it an issue about trans. Weird. Here's the clip.
Laura Trott, should he apologise?
Look, I saw the brilliant interview that Laura Kuenssberg did this weekend with Brianna's mother, and what happened was obviously completely horrific. What Brianna's mum was talking about there was specifically around social media and around mindfulness, both of which I think we need to look at in light of this. I don't think we should make this a huge issue about trans. That's not what she said this weekend. That was what it was mainly about, and I think we need to be very sensitive and listen to what Brianna's mum had to say.
About trans. You mean trans people? She couldn't bring herself to say trans people because she didn't want to humanise trans people, and it would expose transphobia as just hatred, simply. I initially tweeted praising Keir Starmer for attacking Sunak when he made the comment, but I deleted it because you know what? I'm not going to give Starmer any credit. I mean, yes, he rightly called out Sunak, but Labour's policies are just as transphobic. Wes Streeting recently said on TV that under him, the NHS will segregate trans people to separate wards, which is disgusting, and not to mention that Rosie Duffield still has the whip. So Starmer doesn't actually care about trans people. He just wanted to optically look good, which is to pretend to care about trans people given the timing. Now, having said that, some in the right-wing media have decided to attack Starmer instead of Sunak. We have a couple of tweets from Julia Hartley-Brewer with her take on this. 1, she wasn't in the gallery at the time. 2, even if she was, it was irrelevant to the point being made. 3, it's a tragedy that her daughter was murdered, but that fact has zero bearing on whether or not trans women are women. 0. A young girl was killed for being trans, Julia. How can you say this has no relevance? Trans women aren't women, that's a fact. Pointing out that the man who wants to be our next PM claims to think that some trans women are women is not transphobic. That's also a fact. Regardless of who says it, regardless of when they say it, regardless of who hears it. Keir Starmer should hang his head in shame for this pathetic and outrageous attempt to pretend that pointing out biological facts is transphobic or an insult to the mother of a dead child. Shame on you. Wow. What a callous, disgusting, vile demon Julia is. I mean, I viscerally dislike this person. I think she is rotten to the core. Those 3 tweets were posted one after the other. I mean, a young girl has died. This week is significant because her killers have been convicted, but Julia, the oxygen thief, thinks it's far more appropriate to defend Rishi Sunak's comments and then goes on to make transphobic comments herself rather than reflect on the death of an innocent. The lack of introspection from people attacking Keir Starmer. It's their transphobia that led to the killing of Brianna Ghey. It simply wouldn't have happened if so much of the media didn't act like they didn't want to see trans people dead. I'm sorry, but it goes to show that there aren't any gender critical people out there who are just concerned, have questions. Bollocks. It's just blatant transphobia. Now, most people in this country support trans rights. I'd say most people probably don't have an in-depth understanding of gender fluidity, non-binary, and trans people, given most of us don't know what it's like to be anything other than cis. But even so, that doesn't matter because they support trans people. They support these people. To be a decent person, you don't have to know exactly what it's like to show your support for marginalized groups. It's just about being a good person. Now, in terms of the rest of the media, they have basically done what Starmer has, which is to be concerned about transphobia only now, given what's happened. Now, for Starmer, he attacked Rishi Sunak for not being proper. Essentially, there's a time and a place for overt transphobia, but today isn't the one. So if you're going to criticise Starmer, that's the legit one. It's not out of care. It's because Sunak was inappropriate. He hasn't attacked the government on their trans policy because he agrees with them. Starmer doesn't get it, or he doesn't care. I mean, he posted this yesterday, which is genuinely perplexing. Today, I met Esther Ghey, whose daughter Brianna was murdered last year. I am utterly in awe of her strength and bravery in the face of such unimaginable grief, as she campaigns to make sure no parent has to go through what she did. Labour will work with campaigners and parents like Esther to ensure our children and young people have the mental health support they need. It's what Brianna and her family deserve. Mental health support? I mean, she was murdered. She didn't take her own life. What does her death have to do anything with mental health? Of course, many trans people suffer from mental health issues. But when it comes to Brianna, it was just a straight up killing. Starmer is so performative. He's trying to show that he gives a shit, but actually, this is just a PR stunt. The fact that he mentioned mental health isn't some mistake. He can't make a statement about transphobia itself because Labour have been pushing transphobic positions. That's what the media are doing. Yes, they are being sensitive now, because how could they not? I mean, they're suddenly concerned because a young girl was murdered. But the lack of introspection from the media in regards to their role in all of this, their role in the death of Brianna, is shocking. They played a part in all of this, as well as both our political parties. In fact, most of our political parties. The media have non-stop pushed out transphobic articles. Several years ago, the British press barely covered the trans community, and when it did, many of the articles they published were positive. This has now changed. Coverage of trans people has risen dramatically, with an average of 150 articles about the trans community now published every single month since 2015. That's over 13,000 articles focused on less than 1% of Britain's population. This might be a welcome change if the coverage was positive and inclusive. However, analysis of the actual articles shows that it is not. Transphobia has increased over the years due to the moral panic from every corner of the media. So I'm not wrong to say that not only is her death on her killers themselves, but her death is also on our complicit politicians and our media.